I remember following it past the square leg thinking, whoo, that was good. And I turned around and Curtly had followed right up to me. Apparently he bowled some beamers at you, but you know, Curtly, he says they weren't on purpose, you know, and I've got to believe him because he's a great bowler. You know what? The one bowled me two in the West Indies as well.
I want to know why Curtly Ambrose beamed you.
Why he beamed me?
Yeah. Remember when he bowled a beamer at you?
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
He bowled me one, he bowled me three.
Why did he do that?
Because I'd pulled him off the front foot. And, you know, I just stayed in that place. They thought I'd nicked one off Robinson, which I hadn't. I'd caught my pad. And Curtly wasn't the first one to beam me. Greg Thomas had already, he bowled me one and then Curtly came on after him. But Curtly bowled me the short ball. It was a beautiful, slow Northampton wicket. And I sort of rocked forward and I pulled it off the front foot. And I remember following it past the square leg thinking, whoo, that was good. And I turned around and Curtly had followed right up to me. And he looked down at me and he went, be careful. And I thought, you know, what are you going to, you know, I got a chest pad, arm guard, grill, you know, what are you going to do? Go and bowl another? And he went back and I thought, right, this one's going to be shorter and faster, but it's going there as well. Yeah, yeah. And he came in, it was like, where is it? Whew, straight over my head. And he bowled me three in 5 balls. And the next day, Steve Coverdale, the chief exec at Northants, called me into his office and Curtly was there and Alan Lamb. Steve Coverdale was just about to chat and Lammy went, hey, I'll do the talking here. Dermot, Curtly tells me there was a bit of an incident yesterday where apparently he bowled some beamers at you. But, you know, Curtly, he says they weren't on purpose, you know, and I've got to believe him because he's a great bowler and they missed you. Anyway, whether they're on purpose or not, Curtly wants to say sorry. Curtly, he went, sorry. He went, okay, Curtly, off you go. And he ushered Curtly out and then went, you know what? The one bowled me two in the West Indies as well. And that was end of apology.
I mean, the most accurate bowler of all time. I'm not sure I've ever seen him bowl a full toss above knee height. So I would assume that you had annoyed him quite a bit.
I've heard another reasoning for it.
Right.
So essentially, you were slog sweeping fast bowlers. Was that correct? I mean, you pulled it. It went.
That was a pull. No, I didn't slog sweep Curtly. I did slog sweep Akram, say in a 40 over.
So was that? I mean, am I right in saying that was that a dumb thing?
No.
Slog sweeping fast bowlers.
No, it was because I couldn't hit straight. Because I couldn't play through the offside very well or hit straight without. I could hit straight if I skipped down and did it. But I just worked on, you know, I grew up in Hong Kong, short square leg, short square boundaries. You're watching a guy called Cedric Derricks at KCC, you know, he swept every ball. He'd just go and sweep every ball for 6 or get out. But it was a shot you know, just with my bottom hand, if it was just outside off stump and on a line and length, you know, I would drop kick it sort of over square leg. And it became, you know, Gladstone didn't like me playing it in the nets against him, Glad.
Would he beat
But
you?
it was a shot that I worked on, and it was sort of my go-to at the end of a one-day game. But I've never played it against Curtly.
But you said that bowlers didn't like it in general. Like, is it generally when you play that shot, is it followed up by a bouncer? Like, is that what you were getting after that?
No, I didn't. Bouncers were. I didn't play it much in 4-day cricket. It was a one-day cricket, so you didn't really get bouncers that much in one-dayers.
Not back then, anyway.
But
yeah,
you know, I remember Jonathan Agnew against Leicestershire. You know, I used my feet to him. I skipped down and blocked it, and he just said, "If you do that again, I'm going to bowl you beamers." So he, you know, that makes you go, "Oh, I'll just stay in the crease," you know. But the game's changed so much. Everyone skips down now.
Yeah.
Well, they do now.
So when would you have done that to Agnew then?
I would have done that to Agnew in the 80s, but...
Because Dean Jones, by the late 80s, it kind of makes that quite a popular... It takes a while for the whole game to come in, but once Dean Jones does that, especially the big 145 against England, it becomes a thing that you see a lot of cricketers around the world. So when you did it, it might have been more of an outlier thing.
Whenever I did anything in cricket, I was just trying to play the percentages at the time. So Ian Botham did it to me. That's the first time that someone skipped down and hit me over my head. Now, as a bowler, medium pacer, you get to there to let the ball go. You can't change. If you decided I'm going to bowl line and length and you're there, if a batsman comes late and skips down, you can change a length ball into a half volley. So Botham did it to me at Hove, and next ball, a bit earlier as I was loading up, he did that with his front foot. And I thought he's coming down again, but he wasn't. He just did that to make me bowl it short, and he pulled me for 4. So that was a tactic, a skill that I thought, I'm going to learn that and use that. And I passed that on to Nick Knight. And when I was commentating at Bristol, he's facing Brett Lee. And he skipped down to Brett Lee and hit him over his head. And I said, commentating, I said, watch his front foot now. He'll just dummy a bit earlier. And sure enough, Brett Lee bowled it short. So, I guess it's a bit like Rory McIlroy going, I'm going to learn watching Scotty Scheffler. But if you see something that works that someone else does, Malcolm Marshall, I saw reverse sweep John Barkley at Southampton to win a 40-over game. He reverse swept him for 2 fours and won the game for Hampshire. And Johnny Barkley was pulling his hair out in the changing room going, they should ban that shot. They should ban it. And I thought, I'm going to learn that shot. And the year Warwickshire, the year we won 3 out of 4 trophies, in one-day cricket, we faced 7 overs less of spin than the opposition, and we scored 250 runs more. We didn't actually play seamers, even with Lara in the side and with myself and Munton and that's all. We didn't play opposition seamers any different. We took a wicket every 26 runs and scored at 4.2. It was exactly the same. But against spin, our spinners were going at 4 and over, and we were taking opposition spinners for nearly 6.
And that's the reverse, you think?
That's because I think myself, Roger Toos, Dominic Ostler, Brian didn't reverse sweep.
He didn't
need to. In fact, Roger Toos, he said to Roger Toos one day, why do you play that shot? And Roger said, you should learn it. You'd be a better cricketer. I mean, Roger had put our notice up in the changing room saying, welcome to the second best left-hander in the world. Just to wind Brian up. But Toosey, I could watch Toosey bat and I could tell you where the ball was going to go. If there was no one at 45, he'd get down and paddle it. If they didn't change the field, they'd do it again. And then they block that off, and then he might reverse, and they block it off. So then you got single square of the wicket. When I started playing cricket, off spinners would bowl with 6 on the leg side, Hemmings, John Embry, and they would just fire it in at middle and leg, and people would just clip it to square leg, clip it to mid wicket, try and hit long on for a 1. And, they'd bowl their 8 overs for 20, 8 overs for 16 regularly against, say, Warwickshire. So when I became captain, I remember saying to Trevor Penny, if you face another maiden off James Boyling or off an off spinner, again, you're going to be in the second team. He's a fantastic player, Trevor, but there's no one there for the reverse. Yep. And he's bowling with 6 on the leg side, Trevor, And, eventually we got Trevor Penny reverse sweeping. He did it against Yorkshire in a quarter-final.
But so when was this? Late 80s, early 90s?
This?
Yeah. Or earlier.
This was that season in 90. I mean, when I went to Warwickshire, the second team coach, you couldn't play the reverse sweep in the nets. It wasn't allowed. The game, I had to produce a video for the cricket committee after we won the 3 out of 4 trophies. I produced a video of premeditating against spin. Because if you do it at the right time, when the field's set a certain way, it's not really very high risk. You can just run it off the face of your bat, the spinner bowls it fast, and it goes for 4. And then they change the field, so there's a gap somewhere else. But
It's also like what I worked out, and I'm obviously not anywhere near as good a cricketer as you, but I'd never played it because it wasn't allowed when I was playing. And then one day I did it because I'd had a injection in my arm and I couldn't slog like I normally would, so I had to be smarter. And I played a reverse sweep, and I was like, well, this is a double hand backhand, like it's a tennis shot.
Yeah.
Like this actually. I've been petrified to play this shot because it doesn't make any sense to me. And the minute I did it, I was like, well, wait a minute, if I can hit a double hand backhand, I should be able to, off a spinner, be able to wait and chop it rather than play because I was thinking in my head, you played it like a normal sweep. You don't even have to do that because you're only beating one fielder who's up in the circle, right? Or two fielders that are up in the circle. So you're just trying to get it through. So it's not even like a sweep where you've got someone at deep backward square leg and you're really trying to ping it to try and get it past them. It's kind of like a half shot, isn't it? And once you do that, as you said, you open up the offside, you open up the leg side, and all these things that you're talking about are really interesting. It's really hard to be an outlier, right? Once. And so you see someone like Benny Howell, bowling all these 10,000 different slower balls, and every other bowler could do what Benny Howell does, but they don't want to be the guy who bowls at 115 kilometers an hour and tries all these things. But you're talking about slog sweeping fast bowlers. You're talking about using your feet to fast bowlers at a time when that wasn't happening. You're talking about getting your whole team to play reverse sweeps. That's something within you that is unafraid to try a different tactic and maybe get it wrong and be laughed at. Because we all know the Mike Gatting story, of course, of where his problem with the reverse sweep was probably that he did it to the wrong ball because Alan Border bowled a shocking ball down the leg side. But at that stage, a reverse sweep was still really frowned upon everywhere, especially in
it absolutely was.
Yeah.
And that was, you had to change the psyche of the cricket committee watching.
Yeah.
And
because you would have had guys who would have gone out to the reverse sweep that year, I would have assumed, or would have.
I got out caught at backward point of Robert Croft playing it like first ball because the field was set that way. And I said to Mickey Stewart in my debut for England, I said, if Carl Hooper keeps this field, I will be reverse sweeping first ball. Is that I was just giving him a heads up. It's not that I'm going out there to be cocky, but if an off spinner's bowling,
That's
just a backward point and there's no slip. That's all free real estate. Just getting down and running it as a reverse. That's not even a sweep. That's just like put the bat there. Then there's the reverse hit, and then there's putting your right leg down instead of your left leg, turning your shoulders to, which is a bit more like the tennis backhand. So,
what was Mickey's take?
Mickey, he just said, do whatever you would do.
Oh, really? So he was okay with it?
Yeah.
What about?
I mean, I faced Ravi Shastri at Glamorgan, who was bowling over the wicket into the rough outside leg, and he had 7 on the leg side in a 4-day game. So I turned round and I faced him square on, but I held the bat left-handed, and I swept him left-handed a couple of times.
So you actually faced up left-handed then?
Yeah, I faced up neutral, not that either way, just dead square. But I held the bat left-handed. So I had practiced it against Asif Din in the nets. I used to practice it, and I used to get angry if people would play reverse sweep in a game. Jason Ratcliffe played it once, and he was all, happy with himself, and I gave him a talking to because he hadn't practiced it in the nets. He just brought it out and just tried it in a game first. But
what about? I don't know how long you did it for, but you used to throw the bat away.
Yeah, see, I wasn't the first to do that. I was fielding at Silly Point at Uxbridge. Norman Gifford was bowling to John Embry, and John Embry was kicking it, outside leg, and he kicked it, and it came up on his gloves, and I nearly caught him. So he thought, he saw this, and he kicked and dropped the bat to not get caught off his gloves. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So I did it against Raj Maru at Edgbaston. But I did it about 17 times. But eventually Raj Maru went from being over the wicket, he went back to left arm round, and we got on with the game. But in a 4-day run chase, on that last day, that last afternoon on a run chase, it was very commonplace. Spinners would come over the wicket, bowl it a foot outside leg with 6 on the leg side. The only shot you can really play is a sweep. And they're wanting you to get a little top edge to the man at 45. So if you decide you're not going to go for the runs and you're just going to kick it, well, you may as well drop your bat to not get caught off your gloves.
When are you dropping the bat? Are you dropping the bat before the ball is like before the ball hits your pad or as it hits your pad? Like at what stage?
Before, as soon as he's bowled it, just
Yeah.
kick and drop, kick and drop.
So you can't get caught off your gloves. You can't get an edge.
Graham Hick off Warney at Brisbane, caught Healy kicking it,
Yeah.
kicked it, got caught. Alex Stewart off Mushtaq Ahmed, kicking it at Lords, kicked gloves, caught silly point. Both of them would have dropped their bat. They might have averaged a bit, scored another 50 for their country.
You're talking about practicing things. Is that something you practiced before, or is that something that just in that game at that moment you just?
No, that I didn't practice that.
Because I'd be terrified I'd drop the bat on the stump. I'd be absolutely terrified that I'd put the bat down safely and would somehow spin back onto my stump.
Well,
Lean it against the stump.
they had a meeting at Lords, and I got called into a cricket committee meeting and sat down, and there was a picture. There was a headline, oh, he's done it again. And there was a picture of me with dropping the bat. And they had this, I had to chat with, I think, Doug Insole and a few other people. They said, why did you do it? I said, well, I didn't want to get out, caught off my glove.
Did they get it?
And I said, Doug said, I would have appealed for obstructing the field. And I said, well, you weren't playing. So they didn't, no one did appeal.
They changed the laws?
Do you know what they did? I said, if you just take the words holding the bat out of the laws, because it says you can be caught off your gloves whilst holding the bat.
Yeah.
That's in the laws. So occasionally you get a short ball and a person takes the right hand off, and that's a nightmare for umpires, as it, But what they did, no, they brought in the next season that if the spinner was bowling in a negative fashion outside leg, it would become one-day wides.
Yeah.
So,
as long as
and 2 runs, I think, for a wide.
Yeah. As long as it's not spitting back onto the stumps, and if you're negatively bowling and you're not attacking the stumps.
Yeah.
That was where that
So they changed the law that way to stop spinners bowling negatively. But